Hello there! Welcome back to another vlog, although this time it's my first reading vlog. The stars kind of aligned this weekend and I'm reading a lot of different books. I have nothing else going on tomorrow. I don't know how it's gonna go. I've never done one before, but I'm not really a morning person, so I thought now, the night before the reading vlog starts, I would talk about the actual books. So starting off with The Midnight Library. I've been wanting to read this for a while and I checked out an ebook copy from my library and I was really liking it, but trying to read it within their app on my phone was like a nightmare. So I bought a physical copy and I'm on page 46. I'm really liking it so far, but one thing with this book is I do think that it needs some trigger warnings, which normally I don't really care about trigger warnings, but I really wasn't expecting the beginning of this to be so heavy, and it does start off with a woman who is in her like mid-30s and she's depressed and she attempts suicide, and it's not really a spoiler because that's like the foundation of the book, and I didn't really know that going in, and from the cover I thought it would just be like a happy like magical realism contemporary, and yeah, it definitely starts off pretty heavy, so I think that's important going into it, yeah, especially after the year that we have all had. But that said, I am really enjoying it and it's pretty short, so I'm hoping I might get into a good groove and can maybe finish it this weekend. The second book I've been reading is Star Wars from a Certain Point of View, and this one, I didn't know this going in, but it basically retells the whole story of A New Hope, but from different perspectives of like side characters. It's okay. I'm about a third of the way through it right now, and I really like the first few stories that I read, but then so many stories were set on Tatooine in the cantina and in the Mos Eisley, and I have learned that is not the setting in Star Wars that like gets me going. There were so many stories in that setting, and it's like that's not a huge part of the movie. I think I'm finally getting past that part, so I'm hoping I'll enjoy the other stories going forward and I can like really get through it quickly, because they are short stories, and so I feel like it captures my attention better sometimes than like a full-length novel. So yeah, I will be also reading this tomorrow. And this one I have to read at least one chapter this weekend. So Dune. Some of you will be very happy to know that my husband and I have decided this year to read Dune together, which we like have never really buddy read a book before. Like he doesn't read a lot of books, but we've decided that we will each read at least one chapter of Dune per week. This weekend, before Sunday night at some point, I have to read the second chapter. And Dune doesn't really have numbered chapters, so we're going by every few like chapters there's a new quote at the beginning, so we're at like the second quote. I really wish the chapters were numbered because that would make it a lot easier. But for page reference, if you have this copy, the chapter we're starting on is page 17. I will actually be reading it on my Kindle because he is reading my physical copy. Other things, my husband and I have been voraciously watching the Haikyuu anime series this month. I put it on and we just like fell in love with it. We're almost done with season 2, but I do want to also read the manga, so I purchased volume 1 and I have just read a little bit of it. I'll probably read it on my phone because the Kindle app does pretty well with graphic novels and things like that on the phone app, better than on the actual Kindle. Anyway, so I will probably pick that up if I'm feeling like slumpish, because I know I can get through that pretty quickly. And then the fifth book I'm reading is an audiobook of Scythe, and I'm almost halfway through this. I really like it. I should probably tell you more about these stories. Oh my gosh, I haven't really told you anything. Okay, so backing up, Haikyuu is about a volleyball team, and I am not a sports person. I knew about like this much of volleyball going in, but it's fantastic. The characters are all so endearing. It is the most wholesome thing I think I've ever ingested. So that's about volleyball. Scythe, which is the audiobook I will be listening to on and off, is a YA dystopia. Basically all of humanity's problems have been solved. Like, we've peaked. We've reached our goal. We've solved like death, and so like people can revive themselves and like set back their biological clock to appear younger and like basically live indefinitely. But because of that, there's an overpopulation problem. And so there are people known as Scythes who, it's kind of like a selection, but they take on the profession of killing people, of choosing randomly, it's supposed to be random, people of the population to kill, so that, or glean is how they call it, to keep the population from becoming too overcrowded. I'm sorry, it's really late at night, so I'm not articulating this very well. It is kind of heavy, so I haven't been able to listen to it in like really large chunks at once. I've been kind of like listening to a chapter or two, and then like I'll have to take a break while I'm doing dishes or going on a walk or whatever tomorrow. That is what I will be listening to. So I will catch you guys then. Bye. Okay, I'm sorry, this framing is terrible because I am too lazy to bring my tripod in here right now. So it is 9 a.m. I've been awake for 1 hour. I listened to my audiobook of Scythe as I was getting ready this morning, and a lot has happened in that book since the last check-in. So the premise is Scythe Furudate is like the scythe we're focusing on in the beginning, and scythes are a little like Jedi in a way, where they can take like apprentices, and normally they only take one, but this scythe takes two. One of them at the end of their training will become a scythe and the other won't. But then they attend like this scythe conference, kind of like where all the scythes gather and like talk about their laws and stuff. And the other scythes at this conference decide to make it kind of like the Hunger Games, where whichever one of the apprentices becomes the scythe will have to glean the other. So that's kind of where I left off last night, and this morning I'm like, well, what I predict will happen when they choose one of the apprentices, that instead of killing the other, that they would glean themselves to save the other. That's what I thought was going to happen, but oh no. Okay, so I don't like to talk about more than like a fourth of the way through the book, like, because I take a very conservative approach to spoilers, but it's a reading vlog, so I have to like tell you something. So if you don't want any spoilers, then skip to the next clip. But about halfway through the book, right after that announcement is made about them having to glean the other, Scythe Furudate gleans himself, at least as far as we know. And I was not expecting that. And so now the two apprentices have split up, and one is going to like this really good and like morally correct one, and the other is going to like this like really morally corrupt one. And I think that they're still gonna have to like whoever gets the apprenticeship will have to glean the other. I think that that's still going on, but I did not see this turn of events. Although looking back, the build up to this has been great, and I really appreciate the way that this book has taken the time to like construct the world and do a lot of world building. I have missed some character development, but it is a trilogy. I think it's a trilogy, and so usually with series, the character development is spread out over longer, but the world building so far has been really good. So I'm actually really liking this one, and like I thought I would like it, but I think I'm liking it even more than I thought I would. So A+ so far. I just did a clip where I was actually reading, and I was reading a certain point of view. And it just so happened that the story I chose to read for that clip was actually very sad. That story happened to be set during the destruction of Alderaan, and it was pretty sad, but also really good. So now that I am past all the Tatooine and Cantina stories, it has gotten a lot better. So I'm finally enjoying it again. I took a nap this morning, so I haven't done a lot of other reading. I will update you again when I have more information. Hello. So we just woke up from another nap. Sorry. Catching up on a lot of sleep today. But to update you, so in the Midnight Library, I'm about 100 pages in, on page 102. And I didn't really explain this very well, but the concept is the main character dies. And when she wakes up, she's in this library. And the library has books of her life and every different decision she would have made, how her life would have been different. So now she's like choosing different books and jumping back into these different lives. It's you know, a story that we all know of someone like reliving their life based on like a past decision, like the butterfly effect. So it's okay. It's going pretty well. Stories like this always like annoy me a little bit because I never think that they're very realistic. And I mean, obviously they're not realistic, but it just seems like it is like always a drastic butterfly effect, and I don't know if it would actually be that way if this were to actually happen. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've been enjoying it, and it's going by really fast. From a certain point of view, I've read several other... Are you rolling around? Oh, hi. So I wanted to kind of name the stories and my opinions on them. I think I started today with Lena by Will Wheaton, and I really liked it. Fully Operational was okay. An Incident Report was okay. Change of Heart was really good. Eclipse was really good. Verge of Greatness was okay. Far Too Remote and The Trigger were all fine. And right now I'm on Of MSC 6 and Men. It's like supposed to look like Of Mice and Men, and it's written like a droid transcript, like a transcript of everything the droid is processing. And while I think it was probably like really hard to write, and I'm like impressed with the ability to write something like that, it's not very fun to read. So that's where I stopped, because it just took me out of the whole thing. And it's kind of long too. I don't know. I am about halfway through the Haikyuu Volume 1, and I mean we're almost done with season 2 of the anime, so the manga is very similar. I'm reading it on my Kindle app on my phone, so I wish I had a bigger copy of it, because the art is really pretty, and like the spreads and the way that motion is done is really cool. But anyway, I'm limited to my phone. I think like so far, I think the anime does a really good job at showing like the motion of volleyball, because it is such like a, you know, there's so much motion involved. But the manga is a lot better at like identifying the characters. I don't know, I get to spend more time on their facial expressions. It has already like several times had different like call outs of who this character is, what position they play, what year they are, and that's been really helpful. Whereas in the anime, you don't get that quite as much, and so it's kind of hard to like learn their names. Scythe, I've listened to a little bit more of it. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. I like it, but I don't really understand a lot of the motives. I don't really understand why Sidra and what's his name? I don't even remember. Why the two characters are still like pitted against each other, because now that they're under different apprentices, that doesn't really make sense. And I think, I don't know, it seems like one of those superficial plot details. I also don't like, the boy has gone to like the morally corrupt Scythe, and I don't know, like, it was to be expected that he would start to change, but it's been so drastic in just like 4 months that, I don't know, it doesn't seem very realistic. So I like it, I do. And especially, like, it came out I think in 2016, you know, like The Hunger Games came out, and The Hunger Games is really well written. And then after that there was kind of a YA dystopia craze where like kind of any dystopia could be published at that point in YA, like, because people were just ingesting them. But now I feel like people have pulled back, especially in like 2016. They were kind of sick of the genre. So to publish one, so to publish one in 2016, I think it would have had to be really, really good. And I think that this one is really, really good. Plus this author, I believe, is the same author who wrote Unwind, which is another YA dystopia. And I like Unwind. One scene in particular was really good in that book, but I do think that Scythe is better. So it still feels YA, but it does feel like high quality YA. And I'm hoping I like the last 25% enough to read the sequels. Okay, I gotta go now because Rex is up and probably wants to get off the couch. Bye. Hello. So it is Sunday morning, almost afternoon. It's 11:55 a.m. and I have a lot of updates. So I have about 30 minutes left of the Scythe audiobook. Scythe is a hard word to say. A lot of things have happened. Lots of things have happened that I was not expecting. Just like, I probably should have expected some of them, but I didn't. I don't know how. I have no idea. It's just gone. But I'm still like really intrigued to see how it goes. And like I said before, it is a trilogy, and so it definitely feels like they're setting up more books, but I have no idea what those will have in them. What I'm really looking forward to seeing in probably future books is having the Thunderhead become more of a player. The Thunderhead is like, the cloud has gained consciousness. It is a dystopia setting, but I think most of the time in settings like this, technology is the enemy, and I would really like this series to kind of like flip that and have the technology be an ally and make it more complex that way, which so far it's done a really good job at that. I might actually continue this series. It's been pretty good. So I haven't read anything else from a certain point of view since my last update, but I have thought about it a lot more, and I think I've come to realize kind of the issue with books like this, which isn't really an issue of the book itself. It's more of an issue with like fandoms in general. So this book is kind of designed as a retcon device in a lot of ways. Not in a way to really change the known canon, but to change one's perspective of what the known canon could be. It provides alternative interpretations. And in doing so, it does, you know, retcon some things. It does add in some details, but the goal of this book is not to retcon, it's to make you think more about what could be going on in the background. Now, this book is canon, and so the problem with that is by doing so, by putting these words in print, you are creating a strict, this is now canon. Again, I don't think that's the book's fault, because that's not what the book is trying to do, but now, like, anytime you think or like pose the question online or start to think, you know, more deeply about the details in this movie, like why the red astro mech blew up, and they went with R2 instead. Someone could always be like, oh, well, there's an answer in a certain point of view. It's definitely this one answer. And I don't like that. You know, I want these to be interpretations. I like seeing these as interpretations, but not as like the only truth. But now, like, I'm sure that every detail that's discussed in this book is now like on the wikis as fact, as canon. And I don't know, I think that that's not quite the goal of a book like this. Especially since I see Star Wars as almost a modern mythology in a way. In my head it's very similar to like Greek and Norse mythology, where you have all these characters, it's such like an epic story, but you also have different versions of the story, especially now with like legends and canon. But even within the legends and canon, there are different versions. And I really like that, to see it as like this big thing, and to have different like versions of the story, because like every time we open Star Wars, we're told it happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it is kind of designed to be more of a mythos anyway. So this is more of a conversation about like canon being canon and taken as one truth. That aside, I like the stories. And then Haikyuu, I just passed about the halfway point. I'm a little past halfway, and super cute. I love it. There are 45 volumes, and I did not have enough money to purchase all of them. I don't know if my library has them. They don't have like the ebooks, but I want to read the rest of them, so I don't know how I'll be able to do that. Maybe there are some resources online, but it's so good. The characters are so well developed, even in this first volume, and I especially love how it shows like facial expressions and the characters reacting to what the other characters say. I think it does that. I haven't read a lot of manga, but it does that a lot better than a lot of like the graphic novels that I have read. And I just, it's so good. Like, I'm not a sports person. I, before now, knew very little about volleyball. Even if you're not like into volleyball, I think if you like stories where the focus is on the characters and their relationships with each other, I think you'll probably really like this. And then last but not least, The Midnight Library. I'm on page 172, so I have a little bit more than 100 pages left. And my opinion of this book has taken a dive a little bit. In this book, you have like the trope or the plot structure where she's reliving all of these like possible lives. So she's just kind of dropped into these different lives. The problem I have with it, the purpose of this book is for her to find the life that she wants. Like, if she had made different decisions, which life would have happened where she would have been satisfied? What life would she want to choose to continue? The problem is that each time she's dropped into a new life, she is still her like original consciousness. And so she doesn't know anything about that life except for what she learns from that point onward. And that has become very repetitive and tedious, where she's always like in the dark of what's happening, and people are like, are you okay? You don't know, like, you should know this. This trope is done so much in so many different stories that we should be past that point. And also, like, it kind of negates the purpose of the book, I guess, because decisions that we make don't just change like our setting and the people around us. It changes us inwardly too. Like, it changes our perspectives and our ideals, and I mean everything. Like, it changes us as much inwardly as it does outwardly. And to have her have the same like consciousness, I don't think that it really fits. So what I would like to have seen is she drops into these lives with her original consciousness, but then as she starts to learn things, it like jogs her memories of the life she's currently in. So that, I mean, you have to have some way to tell the story. Like, she can't drop in and already know everything about this life, because then you wouldn't have a book. You couldn't tell that story. But for her to be like completely in the dark each time is very tedious. So I wish that there was that they had done something in between. Other than that, My predictions for the ending is that she's going to choose the life that she had originally, her root life, and just go back to before she decided to kill herself, and to continue living her root life and live more boldly. That is my prediction with a little more than 100 pages left. Other than that, it doesn't seem like it's making as like deep of points as I thought it would, especially since the details of this character is that she has studied philosophy, and she brings that up a lot. And she does like quote some philosophers, but it's very like surface level. It doesn't seem like it really delves deep into philosophy. Maybe that'll change by the end. We'll see. I'm hoping that I can finish some books today and that I will be satisfied with the endings. So, fingers crossed. Okay, the mic should be on now. So I just read a few more chapters of this and I have another complaint. This book, and I guess most books like this too, every time she changes, you know, she gets dropped into another life, one of the things that changes the most, or that pulls her back from that life the most, is how the other people in her life have turned out. Because she made this one decision, her mom dies like a decade sooner, or this person gets in a car crash, or this person overdoses. So it's becoming more about the consequences of her actions on other people rather than on herself. And that bothers me because I think it's true that our actions do affect other people, and it's important to keep that in mind. But also, you're not responsible for the actions of those people. You're responsible for your own actions, and you can't live your life afraid of how it's going to affect everyone. Like, you're only responsible for you, you know? And it's a complicated subject, but I don't like how it's kind of hammering the fact that all of these people's deaths and lives and how they turn out is like contingent on how she turns out, and I think that can be such a harmful mindset. And so that is another thing I'm not really loving about this book. Yeah, sorry if you can hear that plane. I can't control planes. Okay, check back in later. Hello. Is my mic on? Hello, this is the last check-in. It's actually Monday, but I finished reading some things yesterday and it was just too late to check in last night, so I'm doing it today. Let's start with Dune. My husband and I are both reading Dune. We're doing one chapter per week, so this was chapter 2. And chapter 2 was a lot harder to understand than chapter 1. There were a lot of words that I didn't know what they meant, and it seems like it's setting up the antagonist and the conflict, but since I don't know much about the story right now, it was just like a lot of words that I could not parse. I'm hoping it makes more sense as I go on. From a certain point of view, I haven't read that much more, but I did finish the Mice and Men story, and it ended up being okay. Once I kind of got into the groove of how the writing style was working. It's not my favorite story in the collection, but it was fine. So now I'm a little past halfway, and I'm really hoping that I can finish this by the end of the month. Now that we are back on the Death Star and Alderaan has already been annihilated, I think that it will start to pick up. I did finish Scythe, and I really liked it. I think I would give it 4 stars, and I already purchased the audiobook to the sequel. I forgot to say this earlier, but the Scythe trilogy, their audiobooks are exclusive to Audible, which I don't normally use Audible, but I had like a free trial credit. So if you were looking for the Scythe audiobooks, I do believe that they're exclusive to Audible, and I can get into like a whole rant over how I disagree with that business model, but that's not what we're here to do. I think I'm gonna dive right into it because if I wait, I have a really bad habit of not finishing series. I don't like series because I don't like stories that just keep going, you know? I like stories that tell a very cohesive story that the author had planned from the beginning. So I think it's just 3 books. I hope it's just 3 books. My one complaint with Scythe is that there really aren't that many women in the book. There are a lot of characters, but the characters with significant speaking roles are almost entirely men. We have like 3 female characters, and one is a child, and she's just there for like a plot device. She's not there to be a character, so I don't really want to count her. So then we have 2 other female characters that play a significant role, and then we have like the mothers of characters, but like they're only in like the first chapter. And then all the other characters, main characters, side characters, they're all men. There's no reason that they were all men. In fact, there was one character that for a while I thought was a woman, and then I caught a pronoun and I found out it was a man too. So like, this is supposed to be like a perfect society. And so you would think that the gender breakdown would be an even 50-50, but if we were basing the gender breakdown on the characters portrayed in the book, it would be more like 80-20. And yeah, so I hope there are more female characters in the sequels. And then last but not least, The Midnight Library. This really took a nosedive for me. I did finish it last night. I really thought I was gonna love this book. When I started, I thought it was gonna be like 5 stars, maybe 4. I ended 2.5. I found so much of it problematic. Like, besides the way it was written that I talked about earlier, that was kind of annoying to me, the messages that this book tried to get across I found very problematic. There was one line in particular where she's in a life that she thinks is perfect, and then she starts going through the medicine cabinet and she doesn't find antidepressants, and she's like, okay, this must be a good life because I'm not on antidepressants. I'm like, the message that sends is that a life where you're on antidepressants is not worth living, and not a great message. And then there's the whole feeling responsible not for your actions but for the actions of others, and how their lives turn out because of their actions and how your actions might affect them. It's just, I have so many issues with it. The book paints itself to be very philosophical, but I felt like it was not very deep at all. It was very just surface level. I didn't really like it. And the ending is very what you would expect. It doesn't break any new ground with this trope. You know, when I started it, I thought it was going to be like this really profound story, and it really wasn't. I'm not surprised that it's popular because it is like a very vanilla story, I guess. It's very accessible, like you don't have to think hard, it's very easy to get through. But yeah, I did not like the messages in this book. So that's it. What's the other one? Oh, Haikyuu. I have not finished it yet, but I know I'm gonna just like love every moment that I have left. I'm kind of like savoring it, and I know for a fact it will be 5 stars. So if you have not watched this anime yet, or read the manga, but the anime is on Netflix, go watch the anime. At least like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and you'll most likely love it. So okay, I think that's gonna be it for this reading vlog. Thank you for joining me this weekend as I read some books, and I got a lot more reading done than I normally would, so thanks. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Bye. Or at least like that. That was my camera bag, just like move. So I thought that before I went to bed, I would, you don't really need to hear me talk about going to bed. I just filmed a whole clip and realized that my mic was not turned on. Sorry, there's a really cute dog outside. I'm not in frame. Stories, I put this dust jacket on backwards. It's kind of bright. Is that better? Now I look very pale and blue. If I turn this on. Is that any better? Well, I don't look as deathly pale. This is my vlogging shirt. I think I would give it like 4 stars. 4, that was 5. Oh, why? There's no reason. Lost my train of thought. It's just so bad. Outro. Think about it. Give it a thumbs up.